Hey there. If you're a frequent listener to our show, you already know that our show is brought to you by our friends over at Artillery Sports. But what you may not know is that Artillery Sports helps athletes of all types win on and off the course and court. They do this by selling quality, durable, and precision manufactured sports equipment that keeps you in the game, while also using a portion of the profits to provide the funding needed to care for our nation's veterans. With Artillery Sports, it's more than just a game. So head over to artillerysports.com today to buy the quality equipment you need to keep you in the game and to help our nation's veterans at the same time. That's artillerysports.com. Make sure you head on over there today. Oh, and use the code DOCFIRST to get 10% off your first order. Welcome to Documentary First, an inside look at documentary filmmaking. I'm your host and a documentary filmmaker myself, Christian Taylor. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, Jake Taylor. Jake is head of business operations here at Documentary First. He joined our company to help promote our theatrical premiere this past summer. And he's also currently the head coach of Wheaton College men's lacrosse team, where he's been overseeing its revival. Additionally, he works as an assistant event director for large sporting events in the Midwest. Before that, he spent over a decade working in customer relations management and coaching. Jake, it's really nice to have you here. Thanks so much for spending your time with us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to be here. We've had a lot of things happening on our end lately, so plenty of time to sit down and talk now that the seas have calmed more or less. So
Yes, they have. And so it's really nice to, I think, take a second, look back. This is actually Heidi Kinder's idea. I'm sad she's not with us today. She wanted to sit down and kind of talk about the past 6 months and just take an inventory about what we've been doing and hopefully learn a little bit and share that with our audience just because I think we've learned a lot. And
yeah,
let's do a little bit of review. So, Jake, this all started because, you know, actually goes back to David Patterson when he said in the beginning of the year, Christian, I think this is your year. It's 2024, 80th anniversary of D-Day. I think that it's time for you to make back the money that you spent on Girl Who Wore Freedom. And I think we can do it this year. And so his idea was to do a theatrical screening. So we did a real big push for that. And I think you joined us. You moved back to the Wheaton area right before all of that started, right?
yeah. I
Um,
think I think things kind of lined up where you're right, that David kind of was spearheading this idea that, like, hey, it's time. COVID's over. We don't have to worry about that. People are willing to be within 6 feet of each other now. And so I remember this big desire to get it into theaters, right? And to really, kind of see the movie up on big screens. And so I had just stepped away from a position where I was coaching down in Indiana because I wanted to get married. We are married now, so
Congratulations. Yeah.
that's great. But I came back up here, and there was a need, and so I was able to step in and fill that need and kind of help out with the marketing outreach, right? So kind of leading our interns and some newer members to the team in efforts to reach out to theaters and to promote the film to local city councils or veterans affairs groups that we had. And so it was something where I think it was kind of fate that it lined up in a way that we were able to kind of make things work. But it was very nice to be able to step back into the project because I've been involved, essentially since its inception.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool being able to come back and work in an atmosphere where I share this passion with you.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that. You have been with it since its inception. A lot of
Hmm.
people don't know this.
Yeah.
Uh, let's talk about this for a second. We did a little brainstorming about this podcast before we jumped on. Jake, we didn't even talk about this, but I'm going to bring it up. Jake was the one that went with me to Normandy. This is a very little known fact. Uh, I did not want to go by myself because I'd never really traveled overseas. I didn't speak French, and I didn't think it was wise to go alone. Jake had just graduated from high school, and his graduation present from high school was that he was going to go to Italy. He had been wanting to go to Italy after high school since he was in 5th grade, and he learned
Huge
about
fan of Roman history.
Yep.
Huge.
He learned about Pompeii, and he was like, you're gonna take me to Italy when I graduate from high school." And I mean, every year, "You guys saving up for Italy? Because we're going." And I mean, that was planned, it was in the can, and
Mhm.
we were all ready to go to Italy when he graduated. And that was we were ready to go in May, on 2015, when Hunter called me in April and said, "Mom, the Army's sending me to France." And I said, "We're going to France?" And he's like, no, you're not going to France." And I was like, "Well, I'll meet you there." But of course, it would not have been very wise for me to go alone. And so Jake was the fortunate one who
Mhm.
never had been out of the country before. Well, maybe, had you been out of the country before? I don't think so.
Only to Canada.
To Canada.
Only to
Okay.
Canada. I was a big hotshot athlete at one point in
Yes,
my
you are.
life, and, and so I would go to Canada for some lacrosse tournaments, for recruiting opportunities there, and so
Yeah.
that had been the only experience I had had, um, and so it was also conveniently after I had injured my knee pretty
Oh,
significantly
that's
for the
right.
second time.
You had
Yeah,
torn your
yeah.
ACL.
My
Oh,
largest regret in my traveling life came on our flight to either France or Italy, I forget which one. Whichever the longer
yeah.
one was.
Yeah. So that was, yes, I decided to take Jake with me. And so Jake was the one who just was, we're going to go to France. It's going to be like a 4 or 5 day trip. And if you have watched The Girl Who Wore Freedom, you will see Jake in the opening pictures. There's a photograph of us as we're loading our bags into the car. Jake takes a selfie of us getting in the
Mhm.
car, and then there's some initial pictures of Jacob there in France with Hunter. And then there is a first meeting video where I meet Danny and Flo and Jean Marie, the main characters in our film. And I'm filming them. But when they start talking and I'm asking questions, I pass the camera to Jake and he becomes the photographer. And then as we go to film 3 years later, Jake becomes a reenactor in our movie that nobody
And
knows about
hey,
this.
and a production manager. I filled
Yes,
some big shoes when I was
you
called
did.
upon, but
Yeah, you
yeah,
did.
my by far and away, my best experience was you're right, reenacting.
Well,
Um,
what I love about that is that you are in some of my favorite scenes. And this is it again, a little known fact that I never get to talk about. I mean, I never get to tell everybody
mhm.
that you're in this or who you are. But my favorite thing that you do, it's like one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, is when we dissolve you. There was just this scene of you walking through the rushes, through like the seagrass on Utah Beach. And you had just walked, and Corey, our cameraman, got this, shot of you walking through the seagrass up this bluff. And I had this vision of you walking through that and dissolving into this image that we have of the National Cemetery. And I thought that I had seen Bill do that. And I told Bill, "I want you to intercut that together. I've seen you do that before." And he's like, "I've never done that before." But it was something that my mind did,
Yeah.
I guess. Anyway, it's become a beautiful scene in the film. And that's you. And then
That was right after our kind of memorial service, correct?
yes.
For
Yeah,
yeah.
it was. It was right after our funeral. And then you were also in a couple of other scenes. You are the soldier in the egg story where Jean Marie
Yep.
gives you eggs and you trade foods
Making
for
the
eggs.
trade with little Jean Marie on the hood of the Jeep,
Yeah.
where I, the real human, not the reenactor, learned to drive stick shift. Um,
Were you driving that Jeep?
I drove that Jeep. Yeah, remember me and the kids sat in the seat and we took it behind
No, I
Jean.
forgot.
Yeah, 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 behind Jean's property and kind of drove it down to that far barn that he had. I learned the first time I ever drove stick shift was on a 1944 Willys Jeep.
That's a pretty cool fact.
Yeah, yeah, I tell it to people relatively often. I don't drive much stick shift, but when I do, apparently it's very exciting. So,
That's
um,
cool.
if you got really cool things to drive that are stick shift, let me give it a shot.
And then you were also one of the GIs that's in the top of a truck when Danny is talking,
Yep.
giving a salute to
Yep.
the French
I
people.
I come up in a couple scenes. There
Yeah.
were some opportunities I had to hold a camera and
Yeah,
shoot film.
you did.
I don't think any of that, maybe more than 5 seconds, possibly made it into the actual film. But I did get to hold a very, very expensive camera worth more than any car I've ever driven.
Yeah.
So
You also did some sound work also.
that's
I
true. Yeah,
remember.
yeah, yeah. No, I did at Colville-sur-Mer,
Yeah. We
the
have photos of
cemetery.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that was.
Yeah, so
I have
you
more
were
respect for sound men than and women than I have ever, ever, ever could have thought to have had before that. That is not an easy job.
no, they have a challenging job. So, yes, you were very integral to this from the beginning. And so now you've kind of come back around.
Mhm.
And another thing people don't know is you were a history major in college. You went to Wabash College in Indiana.
Yep.
It's a great college experience. And so it has kind of been your passion. So you did come back here during
Yep.
that time to kind of help us. Uh, in this next phase of our project. And so, as you were helping us, oversee the interns, I think you were also thinking about what we could do to, finish paying off what we owe on the film, as well as we needed to raise money to,
Yeah.
and we still do to begin or to finish Heroes of Carentan.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the big challenges that we have obviously is, hey, how do we, number one, we as a company invested a lot in the Girl Who Wore Freedom. We've got to figure out a way to, hey, let's preserve this and make sure it's always something that's kind of part of us, but also we got to afford it, right? We have to make sure, like, hey, it's still available to everyone. It's still on streaming services. You can still buy the DVD. You can still do all these things. And to do that, we have to bring in some money. And then on top of that, you don't want to stop, right? You have more things to make. You have Heroes of Carentan and Grueling Glory and 87, The Brave Dutch, and 100 other things that you would love to make, stories that you'd love to tell because you're a storyteller, right? And as unfortunate as it is, in order to really tell lots of people a story in the world we live in, you need a lot of money. Um, and right now we're not at the point of making a lot of money. We're at the point of trying to make a very little bit to kind of take the first step up the staircase, right? And um, so we've kind of tried to troubleshoot at that and figure out things that would get us over that edge. And I think I remember shooting a lot of ideas your way, and I've still got plenty more. Um, but one of those was kind of getting out and getting more involved in you had screened the film prior. I thought, like, hey, we could lean into this, and I have some experience with event work. Spending a lot of time, at some pretty large sporting events, um, not just in the Midwest, but that's where I work now. And so I thought, hey, what we can do this. This is something that we can do. We can go to events. We've already got this film that people want to screen and have reached out to us about it. They see it, they love it, and they want to share it. And so they reach out to the company and say, hey, we'd love to give this to other people. And we go, great. Well, you can't do that unless we're there too, right? I mean, like, you are so passionate about your film and the thing that you've created that, like, I feel like it would be painful for you, genuinely painful for you to just have the film shown to large audiences of people without being able to give
Oh,
them
it
the
always
same
is when people.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, it always is. When people say, they're just gonna, show the film, I'm like, "Well, don't you want me to come?" I mean,
Right.
really, it's really much better if I come and tell all the stories. I love being with the film, just because I do think it is a much more robust experience. But yeah, you're right. And at this time, what was interesting is, and let me just say this: I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding or perception that once your film gets distribution, then you're making a lot of money. And as an independent filmmaker today, especially in the distribution or in the documentary film world, it is slow. It's slow to make your money back. And it has been true for us. We are very grateful that we have distribution and we are making money, and we have been seeing a return from our distribution thanks to Virgil Films and the work that they've been doing and the marketing that we have been doing. But it has not been paying off. We still have about $25,000 that we've been needing to pay off, and we're chipping away at it. We're
Right.
getting a lot closer, especially after this year. And but we needed to kind of keep hammering away at that. And one of the ways that we have been doing that is through these event screenings. And so through the theatrical screenings, when people could not do the theatrical screenings, they would ask for a different date. And so we started saying, well, we could come at this time, and our director could come too. And that's when we started booking these screenings. So several of these screenings came because of that. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is, why we do these screenings. And if you're a filmmaker, what are the reasons that one would decide to do a screenings? And some of those are, like we said, to raise money, but others are also to grow your own audience, so that you would have more people to see your film. You can raise your social media numbers, also raise awareness for your cause. Those are other reasons to do impact screenings, they're called. And to learn more and to create kind of a bigger group.
And then
um,
I think in part one of your main motivators in this area is quite honestly the relationships, right? I think you are a very relational person, right? You like to forge relationships and get to know people, and so when people see the film and they reach out and they go like, "Hey, I love this film. I have to share it with people. We really want to do a screening. Can we do it here at this time?" That kind of, I don't know, lights a bulb in your head, right? And you're like, "Well, y- y- fantastic. Let's be friends now." Let me come out and show you the exact perfect way to do it. And I mean, I think it's part of this podcast too, right? Like you want to share your experience, and you want to share the struggles, the trials, tribulations, and triumphs that you've experienced, right, so far. And so I think that I would wager, you know plays a large role in your decisions to kind of be involved in screenings, and you want to be there, and
yeah,
you want to build these relationships.
yeah. Now, the cost to that, and there is a cost. The
Yeah.
cost to that is It is a it is a time suck in a sense. So if I am going to do that, and if we are going to spend our time putting together these screenings, it takes away time from other things. So
Mhm.
I'm not able to be here and be present to make money other ways, i.e., voiceover, which is where I usually have my income, or other acting jobs,
Yep.
or I'm not able to work on other things like raising money for Heroes of Carenton from grants or other things like that.
Mhm.
So there is a cost to that kind of event work, for sure. And so you do have to balance that. Is it going to be worth it? Where does it balance out on that scale? And
Right.
that was one thing that we were trying to weigh this summer, is that cost benefit there. Another thing I want to talk about is, how do you come, if you're thinking about, yeah, I want to do these screenings. Screenings sound like a good idea. I want to give it a shot. How do I even begin? Well, you begin by starting to think about your connections among friends and family. You can start small. We did in the very beginning when
Mhm.
we were doing screenings back in 2018, trying to raise money. We started with our friends and family. And we did everything besides bake sales, I think, to try to raise
We
money.
might have had some bake sales,
We
to be
might have had
honest.
some bake sales,
There
yes.
there might have been cookies we sold.
And we would screen the trailers anytime we would have anything. We would screen it among friends and family, and then when we had a rough cut, we would screen that somewhere else. So
Mhm.
friends and family, and then once the film was made, it was people who loved the film would ask if they could screen it. And literally, if people wanted to screen it to their neighbors in their neighborhood, we would say yes. So really, we've been making it possible for anyone, from a neighborhood to a VFW to a church to a museum to a corporation. We've been trying to make that happen, because if even two people or three people want to see the film, they then will hopefully tell more people to see the film.
Yeah, and it's much more so from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's much more so from a desire to share the content of the film than anything else, right?
That's
Like
true.
we're we as a company really are not, this doesn't break the bank for us. It doesn't. we're not riding on stacks of cash because we charge $10,000 a screen. Like Christian, our company, Ben Fythen, Hunter, we all want the film to be seen.
Yeah.
So there are times when, whether following or disregarding my input, right, where our company will bear a cost just to get people to see the film, right, and to, or even if not to get them to see it, to give them the opportunity, to make it a possibility, just because I think you really do just believe in the message that that the film carries. um
Well, and frankly, I have a luxury as a married person who has a spouse that works and provides a good income, and I am not relying on my work to feed us and house us.
mhm,
I have the luxury of doing that because the story is important to me. It is a passion project for me. I'm very blessed that way. Not everyone is. And yes, it is something that I want, a message that I want people to receive. So I'm fortunate that way. Um, but one thing that you talked about is it is, I do want people to see it. And we have to sort of do a price structure thing, which I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. Another thing I want to say is we're talking about how to have screenings. And one of the things that has been most helpful to us is being on the airlines. I never realized how
yeah.
important being on airlines was until we started seeing people reach out to us, buying DVDs, asking us to come in for screenings. It has just been a enormous game changer
Mhm.
for us. Delta was being on Delta was huge, but now being on Delta and United, I mean, it just doubles. It almost feels like it quadruples the impact. So
Yeah.
that was really hard for us to get on those airlines, and the only reason it was possible was because we had insider connections that championed the film on those airlines.
Right.
But there are unique distributors inside the industry that will distribute films, and it's very hard to get to them. But once you do, and you can make your sale, it really, really makes a huge difference. So those airlines are huge. Okay, so then what are the next steps? You really have to figure out a pricing structure. And what we do is we do a sliding scale for different groups. Of course, we're not going to charge the same thing to a neighborhood that we do a VFW or a corporation. So we always have to think about that. But we have to make sure that if I'm going to go somewhere, my lodging is covered, my transportation is covered, and we always say that I cannot lose money for sure. But also, we now have to make money because over time, I've realized that yes, I can't lose money actually financially, but me just being gone and not working on voiceovers and other things like that.
The
Um,
opportunity cost.
right. I
Yeah.
lose money if I'm gone and not working. So I do have to have an appearance fee to be somewhere.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, I think it has spawned, right, our latest ventures, right? So, I think another aspect to when you're doing screenings is you have to define what experience you're giving, right? What experience are you bringing along with a screening? Why would you invest this time, like you're discussing, to go to Irving, California, or Denver, Colorado, or Atlanta, Georgia, to do a screening for an event like this, if it's 100 people, 200 people, and I think in part that's led us to say, like, hey, we have an experience that we think we can provide that elevates it, both in the way that you present your screenings, and now we've decided, hey, we think our next step is we're gonna provide some merchandise for people, right? We're gonna provide them the opportunity to get involved with what we're doing directly. We've been creating a merch line that we're pretty proud of, and that we think carries our message, and kind of helps to serve our purpose of telling the stories of veterans, and bringing recognition to them that we think that they deserve, and bringing recognition to the relationships that they've created, and the things that they allow, those who are or aren't involved in conflicts around the world throughout history. And so, this this latest turn that we've taken has been, in an effort to increase the experience that we provide. And so I think it's very important to focus on that, to focus on not just saying like, hey, let me make sure I can be there and be at the screening and introduce it, and my travel and lodging's covered, but to really focus in. If you're going to screen, your film for someone, you want to just be more than present. You have to enhance it in some way. You have to build upon the base level experience. And so, that's been our latest venture.
Yeah, and I think you have to realize that you are bringing something. You have to value what you bring, and you have to realize that it is okay to be paid for your presence there, and
Yeah.
you bring a
It's
lot.
more okay to be paid for your presence than it is, or it's rather, it's more not okay to not be paid than it is okay to be paid.
Yeah,
You're worth something, as a
right.
director, whether it's you or Tim down the street directing a documentary about socks. Like, the presence that you have and the connection to this that you have is worth something.
Yep. So, just going back to other things that you need to do to what are the next steps in terms of a screening? It's really important that when you are working with these groups, that you talk to them about their price structure, and that you get money down up front to reserve a date. I always tell people that if you're going to book my time, you got to put at least half down up front. That's really important.
Mhm.
Another thing, in order to secure that, is you've got to pick a location and a date right away. Everybody, the location is key. You can't really pick a date until you know you have a location. And then it's to assess the group's ability to raise an audience. If that group can't raise an audience, what's the point? So you've really got to talk to them about their ability to raise an audience. Can you do that? How many people can you get there? Are there other organizations in your area that will partner with you, that will help to sponsor this? Those are some good questions to ask. You need to ask them if they have a marketing strategy or a social media group that can help amplify to get people there. You also need to talk to them about deliverables. What deliverables do they need? Is it going to be in a theater? So, do they need a DCP or do they need an MP4? If they need a DCP, can it be downloaded? Or is it going to be just a hard drive? That's going to affect your costs. So, that is really important. If you've decided you're going to have merch, are they going to allow you to sell your merch at the event? Sometimes you're not even allowed to sell your merch. Well, that may impact whether or not you want to go there based on what they're going to be paying you to go. So these are all questions that you definitely need to ask before you agree to a screening and before you make the decision to go or not. Now, Jake brought up merch earlier. And we did make a decision to do that, and there are reasons why. So, Jake, you were really integral into this merchandising decision. Let's talk about what your thoughts were about that, how that got started, why we did that, and how that's gone.
Yeah, so I think that, like I touched on, I think it adds to the experience that we provide, and I truly do believe that. I think that, we had a lot of options before us to improve our overall experience, whether that be just at screenings or online or on social media. Right, we had a lot of opportunities to improve our experience. I think this is one that resonated with you. I think that you value screenings very highly, and I was like, all right, well, hey, great. I've got some event work experience. I've been at a lot of events, large events of 10,000 plus people. Right, now there's sporting events which are very different, but I've been at these events where I see, look, the experience is better because you have vendors come in and share their things and their story, and the products that they produce. And so I think that what we can bring to these events as a whole, to the event directors of the places that we go, and to the people that, the patrons of the event, is we can increase their experience. We can give them new stories to hear, new things to look at, new products to bring into their households. And so I think that us looking at merchandise was just a way of adding a piece to the experience that we provide. It has been a long and difficult road. and it's something that's kind of ongoing, right?
And I had a lot of misgivings at the beginning. I mean, I really did. I wasn't sure if this was going to work. I had a lot of questions, and uh, we had to. It was really difficult getting the ball rolling on this and all getting on the same page. And you and I and Ben Feithen were, the three that were really heavily, hammering this out.
Mhm.
Talk about a lot of the things that we were, discussing, and a lot of the things we had to wrestle with.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to create essentially, we wanted shirts and clothing items that we could have that would promote things. We had a lot of ideas, right? Our first thing is like, hey, we want to create some products that people want to wear, that are specific to them or specific to their event. This whole project was basically, as a whole decided, and again, it's based mainly on the experiential part. We decided, hey, we need to reach a bigger audience. We have to show people like, hey, we are documentary first. We aren't the girl who wore freedom, right? We made the girl who wore freedom, and we've got these awesome things in the pipeline ready to come to you. We're just trying to fund them. And so we wanted
And
to
we have
kind of,
bigger ideas than just
exactly.
this one,
Exactly.
and a
And so
bigger
we
story.
we wanted to kind of, you know, show people at these events and with this merch line that we made that we are more than just the girl who wore freedom, because we have so many more stories to tell just like that one, right? And so, we wanted to show people, like, essentially with our merch line, we wanted to keep that storytelling tradition. And so one of the things that Christian, that really wanted to do, and have really pushed hard
Whi
for,
which
was,
still has not happened.
yeah, was the print project, right? We have
Yeah,
we have rights to a lot of archival footage, from the Second
and
World War.
print.
Yeah, and so what we really wanted to do was take those photos that we have that are phenomenal pieces of history, honestly, that are so cool to see. And in some ways, they invoke a lot of emotion. They invoke sorrow and happiness, and some of them are hilarious. And particularly the ways that the Navy Signal Corps, photographers, like, title them.
Yep.
There's so much range in those photos, and so we really wanted to share those. And one of those photos, the photo that you can see posted on our social media a lot, or kind of in a lot of our designs, is this image of a battlefield cross, which is this rifle, implanted. It's actually a Vickers, I think, Type 2 machine gun, that's implanted in the ground with a deceased soldier's head on top. And the battlefield cross was
Helmet,
something.
helmet.
What did I say? Head. Oh, I'm
Yes,
so sorry. Yeah, yeah, it is. I'm sorry. His helmet is placed on top.
this is not a gladiator, this
Uh,
is
eh, Sorry.
World War II, and
Yeah,
this was
this isn't Game of
Normandy.
Thrones.
Yes, and it was Normandy, so it was
Yeah.
around D-Day, and I did find this archival photo, and it was very meaningful, and it was very meaningful
Mhm.
because the GI had titled it "Ours to Reason Why," which was a line from "Charge of the Light Brigade" by Alfred Lord Tennyson, which was a poem from 1854, Battle of I forgot what it was, Battle of Meade, or no, it was Battle of
No,
it
no,
was
no,
a
no, no,
big
no.
battle in
Balaclava.
England. Balaclava. Yeah, it was the Battle of
I don't know
Balaclava.
if it was in England, and I don't think it was in England, but it was the Battle of Balaclava.
And it was a
Hold
battle
on,
where there was
Jamie, pull that up.
the Battle of
Let me.
600. It was the Battle of 600, where there were these 600 men, and they were sent into this fight. And it really was, they had no chance of surviving, but
Yeah,
they
it
went
it was.
in so bravely. And everybody kind of knew that they were going to die. And, it was everybody's, they had to reason why they were going to die, and because it was just so tragic. And so anyway, this was a poem that everybody kind of knew back then, and students of history today still learn this poem, "Charge of the Light Brigade."
It was
And
Sevastopol, by the way, so very close to England, but
Where is that, Italy?
No, I think it's Russia or Ukraine.
Oh.
It was part of the Crimean War, and the Crimean Peninsula is in Ukraine. As my history, war, and current news advocates will know, things are happening in Ukraine right now, and the Crimean Peninsula is part of that.
Yes, that's true. Anyway, so I saw that and was very moved by that.
Mhm.
And Jake was saying that we needed something ubiquitous as an image for a T-shirt or a patch or a coin or something like that. And this really was an image that stuck with me. And I wanted. I saw his title and I thought, why don't we change that a little bit and make it theirs to do and die, ours to remember why? And I feel like never forget, or we should always remember, is very common these days. It's the same as, thank you for your service. It's almost like God bless you. It's what we say all the time when we see a soldier. Or it's, when we are thinking about Veterans Day. But I wanted to have a new phrase that kind of captured what we are trying to do here, which is it is our duty to remember why soldiers gave their lives for us to be free. And so we then began thinking about this issue and asked our designer, Frank Fisher, who is a friend of mine from Normandy, who owns Airborne Pride, and he does a lot of designs for people in Europe, and he is from Germany. And he designed our logo for us, a new documentary first logo, as well as our ubiquitous design that we put on our t-shirts and our patches.
Well, he didn't design that. And the only reason I know he didn't design that is because if you remember getting that design, so we went with
Oh,
and
you're
we can get
right.
into the story in a bit, but for this specific design, we went with a printing company, a shirt printing company.
Right. He did the
Um,
documentary first logo.
yes, so he gave us all of our new logos, and he helped a ton with
The Danny
yeah,
signature shirt.
exactly, with getting all of these designs done. But this one, there's like two, well, I guess if you count the specification shirts in a whole as one design, there's like two designs he hasn't touched. This is one of those two. And so this was a huge game of kind of playing not even phone tag, but email tag back and forth between, you, me, our CEO Ben, and this shirt printing company, and just trying to get the tiniest minutia changed in this design till we at least felt comfortable with it. And so it takes some time.
It took forever.
Yeah.
And this was hard because the other difficulty was, what company are you going to go with? And this took a lot of time. Jacob had to vet companies, we had to agree, and in the whole shirt printing thing, it's a game, because most companies, they're going to make you buy this bulk order, and it's costs so much money. And then you have all this inventory. And what sizes do you buy? And what's your audience going to buy? And are you going to sell anything? And it's just mind numbing, and it is all a risk and a
Yeah.
gamble. And I'm going to tell you right now, here's the answer today, people. Don't buy smalls and mediums because not a lot of people are going to buy them.
So so it's based on your audience, obviously. But you need to tailor your orders and what you're buying, what you're investing in to, your audience or your clientele base or your consumers, right? And so what we have learned at the very least is that our audience is not smalls and mediums. And that is, some of us thought that might be the case, some of us thought it wouldn't be the case. We thought our audience probably leaned predominantly male. But we did make a mistake of one point at having one shirt only in a women's form that we should have had, both. But it's, when you're making bigger investments like this, right? That it's not just an investment in, early on. It's not just an investment in, hey, we are buying these shirts or these pants or hats or whatever, patches, coins, you name it. We're not just buying these and selling these and then seeing the product, at the end of the day, what the revenue is and how much profit or loss. It is also understanding that with something like these screenings and this event work and going and providing an experience and selling your merch, it is a lot more than just the dollar amount at the end of the day, because you are going there and you are building relationships and connections and expanding your brand, right? So one of our stated goals from the start was we want people to see documentary first as different than the girl who wore freedom. We don't want people to just think of the girl who wore freedom. We want to think of them, or we want them to think of the girl who wore freedom by documentary first, as though documentary first is what it is, the overhanging company that produced this content. And so that is part of why, even if at the end of the day we barely break even, we know, hey, this has still been a success because we broke even monetarily, but now all these people have our stuff. They're telling our story. They're sharing this with the others around them, whether they just put on the shirt or whether they go hand out cards, or send people the link to our website, right? This is an investment. And so what I kind of want to impart on anyone looking to venture, or continue their venture in documentary filmmaking, right? Or the entertainment. Oh no, the business line.
Let's see who it is. Documentary first. It's no one, as usual.
Ugh. No, that I mean, to get back on track, what I want to impart to people who want to kind of take this venture is you have to understand that it, this is an investment in every conceivable way, in your time, your money, your emotions, your intellectual capacity, and you have to understand that if you want to get into this, you've got to be able to have a support system around you in all those avenues. Um, and when results come back, you have to take them with a grain of salt, right? Christian, I know that you've had a bit of a struggle in some ways when, like, hey, when we do some event work, it's hard for you to, I guess, see the forest for the trees in some ways, because you're in it, right? You're there, and you can
Like, what
kind
do
of
you mean?
see, like, if an event, like, we have been, doing this event work for a little bit, selling our merchandise. And it's difficult a lot of times to see your venture as successful, or even having any silver lining, if you finish an event or two events and you haven't made all your money back, right? If you are still in the red, it's hard to say this is a success in any
Yeah.
way.
Well, and I think I have been measuring each event. Like I've been thinking about this. I've been measuring each event, and completely wrongly, because I haven't gotten to the end, and I haven't been adding up all the numbers correctly,
Hmm.
um, at all, from what we bought to all the money that we made back total, to I haven't added it all up. It's just one event. Does this one event cover our costs for
Right.
what I think our costs are all in my mind, right? And when I stop and think about it, the amount of merchandise that we sold in all of these events over the course of the past 4 months or whatever far exceeds any sales we have ever made before, by quadruple for
Yeah.
sure. And the merchandise is far better than we have ever had, and I'm very proud of that. What's so cool is that when people leave our screening events, they do want to come and talk to me for sure, and they always do. But they also love looking at what we have at our table. We have historical things on our table that people will look at, but we also now have um, things on our table that tell our story. So we have this design of the battlefield cross that says theirs to do and die, ours to remember why, with the story there of how that came about and what we believe and why. We have the Danny signature D Day line of the t shirt and the coin and how that came about and what her story is, and it matches up with the story in the book. And so those are all part of our story and they go together. And so people love looking at all of that. And they love taking it with them as a memory and also to be able to share with their kids or their grandkids. And they tell me that. Um, and so it extends the experience of the film. And we have the DVD and the book. We can't forget about those. So
Yep.
I do think that I feel very proud of us that we have done this. This was a hard thing to do, to create this kind of merchandise. And you're right, Jake, that it isn't just dollars and cents. It added a whole lot to the screening experience for a lot of
Yep.
people. They really loved the merchandise that they were able to buy, and everything sold really well. All of it, all of it. We
Yep.
sold. We only have 34 coins out of the 100 we bought, and I really wish we had purchased more.
Yeah.
Um, Interestingly enough, the thing that I found surprising is that the Girl Who Wore Freedom logo shirt, that was just the Girl Who Wore Freedom, sold really, really well. And predominantly the red one. The Navy ones and the Army ones that I thought would sell didn't sell at all. We sold none, zero. It
Hmm.
was just the red one. So I don't know why that is, but that's
I think it pops well. You know,
yeah,
I think
maybe.
a lot of what this experience has kind of taught us is that doing something like event work and doing something like building a documentary film company as opposed to promoting a film is that everything is an exercise in discovering your audience, right? Or excavating your audience. The way I kind of look at it is like, you know, I am an archaeologist digging dinosaur bones out of, you know, rocks, but the dinosaur bones are our audience that wants to buy our stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
if right here on my desk, I have a rock or something.
Oh yeah, the rock or something.
The image may be reversed, but this is a squishy little stress ball, you know, that is a play on um, military MREs, meals ready to eat, right? That have a an internal flameless ration heater, right? You pour some water inside, it causes a chemical reaction that produces heat, and then you put your entree pouch inside that MRE heater, and then it tells you to lean it up against a rock or something at like this angle, so that
At a
the
45-degree
yeah,
angle.
so that the heat, you know, and steam can escape from the top. And so we made a rock or something, you know,
And the
and
reason that this is funny is that the GIs think this is hilarious. The instructions on the MRE are very specific until it
mhm,
gets down to and just laying it up against a rock or something. It's,
right,
they phoned it in the end. And so this is a meme that the GIs have created because they think it's hilarious.
yeah,
And nobody has ever created an actual like rock or something. So we made this squishy toy. And this was something that my boys thought would sell well for kids. And the first one we had them out there, and the kids ran up and loved it, and they're like, "Does the M?" I had it designed with an MRE, and they're like, "Does the MRE come with it?" And we're like, "No, that's our display." And they're like, "Dang it!" And they didn't buy the MRE. I mean, they didn't buy the rock or something. So then the next time we ordered MREs to go with them, and
yeah,
so now we're down to one MRE, and we've
yeah.
sold quite a few rocks. So
But again, like the rock in and of itself is an experience in finding the right market, right? Like so, what you have to understand about this is that until I think it was in the mid to late 80s or maybe the early 90s, but I think it was mid to late 80s, that is when the current MRE style was created. So only newer grunts, right?
yeah,
Like younger veterans from the Gulf War and onward will understand this reference. And it's only in the last 10 years or so, 10,
yeah,
15 years, that this has become more prevalent, a joke
right.
amongst service members,
I
right?
was
And
so excited when I got to Gainesville,
mhm,
and one of the reenactors walked up, and he's like, "Oh, rock or something," and knew exactly what it
yeah,
was, and I didn't have to explain it. I was like, "Oh my
yeah.
gosh," and I took a picture of him. I was so excited.
Yeah, and you texted me about that because I mean, like
Yeah.
it is about finding that guy,
Yeah.
right? Or that group of guys who do have that. We know the things that we are making and providing. We know that these are good, and that the people that value these things or find them funny, like our stickers that we've been creating, right? Like there is an audience for those who, when they see them, they want them, you know, and they love it and they get the joke or they get the you know, the kind of emotional gravitas of the Hours to Remember Why shirt, or they love the girl who wore freedom itself, and that resonates with them. And so we know that audience is there. It really truly is just about, hey, how are we going to reach them? It is truly the biggest possible question that you have in building any kind of business. How can you get to your audience? How can you get to your consumer base? You have to find a way. And the easiest way that we found recently, not just us as a company, but in the business world, in the last 5 years or so, is look, social media is the biggest thing on the scene. It has been big for a long time now. A considerable amount of the younger population is very, very used to it, and familiar with it, and terminally on it. And so for us, that is kind of our easy. Like, we're never going to buy a Super Bowl ad, right? That's just not going to happen. But hey, we can spend a couple bucks to promote our Instagram post, or to our YouTube short, right? Like, those are options that we have and that are available really to anybody trying to reach their audience and find them. Um, and as much as that is a great and convenient option, I will again stress, like, there is no substitute for just being present, right? For shaking someone's hand, for telling them your story. That's why, in my
Yeah.
opinion, it is so important that Christian is at all of our events, right? And that she does tell the story of the movie and shakes every hand she can and asks every veteran every question she can think of, right? What was your favorite ration, meal, or those things are so incredibly important, because especially when you're building things from the beginning, people are your greatest resource, right? People
Yeah.
are going to get you from A to B. They might not get you to Z, but Tim down the street, or Mandy around the corner, or Bill at your local supermarket, they're the ones who will get you your start. You create that relationship, you show them this meaningful passion that you have, and you share it with them, and then they feel, that resonation with them, and then they share it, and it
Yeah.
really gives you some organic growth that is crucial when you're beginning this process.
One other thing we learned is that we learned what what event pace is probably good for our company, which is probably only 1 to 2 events a month, because there really is with given the size of our company and the fact that really it is me going on the road, and it is me talking and things like that. There's just one of me. More than that probably stresses our company too much at this point, and also I still need to make income doing voiceovers and things like that. So learning what your company can stand is probably a good thing too, and that's what we learned. So we learned a lot, and we there's more to learn for sure. But for us, I think the verdict is that event work has been good for our company, and the merch sales have also been good for our company. Yes, financial ways, not hugely, so not huge. It's not a huge boon yet, but definitely in the positive, and definitely sort of emotional ways, and in other non-financial ways, it's definitely been a major boon. So
Yeah.
I would say thumbs up to all of that.
Yeah,
Wouldn't you,
I would
Jake?
recommend. I would just say, be patient.
Yeah,
Know that
the
these
long
things
game.
will, yeah, these things will pay off in time, and they'll they'll be worth it. They just take a lot of effort and dedication. And if this is your passion, that's not something that you should lack. You should have it. And all you need to do is share it with people and let them see it, and that'll resonate with them.
Yep. All right, everybody. Now it is time for everybody's favorite segment, DocuView Deja Vu. All right, Jake, you have a documentary that you want to share with everybody?
Okay, so I have one that I've been watching slowly. It's on HBO Max. I believe it's called Secrets and Spies,
Okay.
and it's based on. There's two point of views. One is from a U.S. I think CIA agent, and the other is from a USSR KGB agent, or it could be
Interesting.
the GRU, but I think it's the KGB. And basically, it's their back and forth between, like, they're telling the story of what it was like during the Cold War, the kinds of things they experienced, what the relationships were like, and how everybody knew what was happening, Like there's one story that they tell of these American agents that were in Russia who knew that the KGB agents were in the hotel room above them, but they it was kind of hush hush, and so like they knew they were listening the entire time, so they were being careful of what they were saying, but they you know one of the KGB agents like left a note on their door with a joke about one of their conversations. So it's like they all knew what was happening and they all knew the tensions that were around them. But at the same time, it still shows some humanity that I think is really cool to see. And at being a history buff, you're never going to get any recommendation for a documentary from me other than something that involves some kind of either political, historical, or military, conflict or interaction. But yeah, I would say it's worthwhile to go. Again, it should be on HBO Max.
Secrets and Spies.
Yep, it was recommended to me after I watched The Hunt for Red October, which is the most important reason that I retain an HBO Max subscription. But Secrets and Spies, I would definitely recommend it. What about you?
Yeah, so the one I started actually with my husband was unexpected, but it's called Mr. McMahon. Not something I would normally choose, but it is on Netflix. And it is a documentary series about the owner and sort of the spearhead of the WWE, World Wrestling. Well,
Oh yeah.
WWF, I guess, World West Wrestling Federation.
So it's the WWE now, but it started, I believe, as the WWF.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the whole thing started, they were just going to interview him. And apparently, as they were making the documentary, or right near the end, after they had interviewed him a ton, all these allegations came out. He was arrested. And so the whole story and the whole documentary had to change. But the majority of all the interviews had been filmed before that all happened. So I can't wait to see what happens when it gets to the end of the series. So we just started it. I am fascinated by it. It was not anything that I knew anything about or was ever interested in, but now that I'm, kind of seeing this world that I never knew really existed, uh, it's interesting. So
It's the professional wrestling stratosphere is wild,
it is, and
wild to say the least.
it all like kind of blossomed in the '80s. So
Hmm.
there's a bunch of Donald Trump in there, and because a lot of it was in
Makes
the
a lot of sense. Yeah.
Madison Square Garden, and Macaulay Culkin was also in the first one. There are shots of him there.
What
Um,
a what a what a phenomenal piece of history.
yeah,
Donald Trump and Macaulay Culkin, by the way, partners on Home
y
Alone 2.
yes, they were.
They
Yes, they
made a
were.
beautiful piece of media there.
Anyway, so highly recommend Mr. McMahon if you're interested in documentary history of the U.S. or interested in quirky offshoots of our society.
In slight
So-
connection with that, it is not a documentary, but only because you bring up the Vince McMahon story and the WWE. Watch Iron Claw. I have been trying to
Oh,
get Christian,
I
Jeremy, and my
watched it with
entire
you,
family.
Jake.
I
I
I
watched it.
know it is
It's
Iron.
depressing.
It
It's
it
depre-
is
it's
it's a
okay. First of
phenomenal
all,
story.
ev-
Hold on, real quick. Okay, so Iron Claw is an A24 film that was released, I believe, last year, but possibly the year before. Um, with is it Zach Efron? Is that who it is? Zach Efron and a
yeah,
couple other guys.
yeah.
But it's a phenomenal film. It is it's sad and
It's
it's
gut
difficult to watch,
wrenching.
but
Horrible.
it to me it as a one of four boys, right? It showed the weight of those relationships and how important they are to you and how anything happening with those can weigh on you so heavily. And it also does give you, aside from the sad family story, it does give you a view into the world of professional wrestling. Just to make that connection, that's the only reason
Yes.
it came
All
up
right,
for
I'll
me.
give you
But
that. So, and then I'm going to say, last night I watched Family Affair with Zac Efron, which is, of course, not a documentary. And I thought I wasn't going to like it or it's going to be stupid. And I loved it. I loved it. It was a great, warm, and rom com. And I really don't like Nicole Kidman at all. I still kind of
it's
didn't love
that
her.
one.
Yeah,
Oh, no, you liked that movie?
I did, I liked it, I did.
No,
I
it's
did.
so bad.
I primarily liked it because of the young actress. She was
Oh, it's
phenomenal.
terrible.
No, it's not terrible. It's
I
not
don't
terrible.
like that actress personally. She's there's nothing wrong with her. Her acting is fine,
I thought
I
she was so
believe.
good. Her acting was
I
amazing.
Yeah, I think her acting is good. I think she's very talented. She's just not my personal cup of tea. But my wife Sarah tried to force me to watch that with her. And normally Sarah and I watch a ton of movies together, primarily bad movies. We watch a lot of terrible movies. But there's every once in a while where we will pick a movie and it'll be bad, and most of the time we just grit it through. We just go like whatever. One of us will force the other into watching the bad movie, and then we have a funny story to tell. Family Affair or Family Affairs, whichever it was, S or no S, was one of the few movies that we started watching, and we neither of us could finish. We could not
If you
make it through.
finished if you would push through the first bad part of it, I mean, it really was good. Anyway, okay, we gotta go. We've been talking
All right,
way
all
too
right.
long. All right. Thank you so much for listening to Documentary First, where we believe everybody has a story to tell, and you can be the one to tell it. Bye, everybody.
Bye.